Well, we're going to see what happens with Greenland. We need Greenland for national security, so we're going to see what happens. They're going to brief me on the meeting right after this conference. In fact, the sooner I get you out, the faster I'm going to know exactly what happened. But we have a very good relationship with Denmark, as you know. We'll see. But, we're doing the Golden Dome. We're doing a lot of things, and we really need it. If we don't go in, Russia's going to go in, and China's going to go in. And there's not a thing that Denmark can do about it, but we can do everything about it.
The Arctic is no longer distant or frozen in time. It is fast becoming the front line of global power rivalry. For Donald Trump, Greenland is not just territory, it is the missing pillar of his Golden Dome's security vision. Driven by fears of Russia, China, and growing distrust of Europe, the Arctic push is accelerating and reshaping geopolitics. If the Arctic is the new chessboard of global power, Greenland may be the king square everyone is circling. Once a frozen outpost on the world map, Greenland has surged back into the geopolitical spotlight as U.S. security ambitions collide with rising rivalry from Russia and China. President Donald Trump has now made his clearest link yet between Greenland and America's future defense plans. In a Truth Social post, Trump said the United States needs Greenland for national security, calling it vital to what he describes as an aspirational missile shield, the Golden Dome. While Greenland is not formally written into any finalized U.S. missile defense blueprint, its role fits into a broader vision of homeland protection, early warning, and Arctic dominance. Unlike previous rhetoric on Venezuela or Canada, Greenland has now been explicitly framed by Trump as a defense necessity. Greenland sits astride the shortest polar routes connecting the United States with Russia and parts of Asia, geography that has shaped military planning since the Cold War. That position makes the island a natural vantage point for tracking missiles, aircraft, and space-based threats moving over the Arctic. The U.S. already operates the Pituffik Space Base in northwestern Greenland, a critical hub for missile warning radar, space surveillance, and Arctic monitoring. As climate change melts Arctic ice and opens new sea and air corridors, Greenland's strategic value has only intensified. Enter the Golden Dome. The concept refers to a next-generation U.S. missile defense system designed to counter ballistic, hypersonic, and cruise missile threats. It would combine sensors, radars, and interceptors into a layered shield capable of detecting and stopping attacks at multiple stages of flight. Greenland's Arctic location makes it uniquely suited for early warning sensors and monitoring platforms that cannot be easily replicated elsewhere. Trump has repeatedly tied this strategic logic to fears of Russian and Chinese expansion. Throughout January 2026, he warned that if the U.S. does not secure Greenland, Russia or China will. Speaking aboard Air Force One, Trump said the United States would acquire Greenland one way or another, reinforcing how central the island has become to his security messaging. He claimed Russian submarines and warships, along with Chinese vessels, are operating near Greenland, a narrative echoed by senior administration officials. Trump has also framed Greenland's security as a failure of NATO deterrence, arguing that U.S. control is the only way to block rival influence. But Denmark, which retained sovereignty over Greenland, has flatly rejected the idea. Danish and Greenlandic leaders stress the island is not for sale. and say its security is best protected within NATO. European leaders have warned that U.S. pressure, including tariff threats, risks fracturing alliances and creating openings for rival powers. For now, Greenland remains Danish territory, but as Trump pushes his Golden Dome vision, the world's largest island has become a focal point of Arctic power, missile defense, and great power rivalry. And in the new race for the high north, geography may matter more than diplomacy, and maps may move faster than policy. The Donald Trump administration has downplayed reports of European nations mulling the sale of American bonds to counter Washington's threats over Greenland. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, while speaking in Davos, called the purported move a false narrative.
This is a false narrative that there is no talk in European governments. This was a report written by Deutsche Bank that this could happen. The media has latched onto this. I think it is a completely false narrative. It defies any logic, and I could not disagree more strongly on that. If you look, the U.S. Treasury market was the best market in the world, or the best G7 performing bond market, and we had the best performance since 2020. It is the most liquid market. It is the basis for all financial transactions, and I am sure that the European governments will continue holding it. And as I said, I think everyone needs to take a deep breath. Do not listen to the media, who are hysterical, just like they were, just like you all were. Let's just go back to what happened after April 2nd, hysteria. And what happened? We had the fastest stock market recovery in history. So I think these false narratives, get out there, get spun up out of control. When I was an investor, part of my success was sticking back, looking at the medium and long term, ignoring the media.
Donald Trump's decision to slap 10% tariffs on European nations opposing his bid to take over Greenland has triggered fresh tensions with Europe. The announcement had drawn angry retorts from the U.S. allies, who were pondering countermeasures. Besides retaliatory tariffs, the measures also include offloading U.S. Treasury bonds. A third of U.S. government bonds worth $30 trillion are held by foreigners and led by Japan. The United Kingdom, Belgium, Canada, and France are other major holders of the U.S. sovereign bonds. Aggressive sale of these bonds would cause long-term interest rates to spike. According to an AFP report, aggressive selling of these bonds would result in long-term interest rates to spike. It would make the refinancing of the U.S. debt hugely more expensive for Trump's administration and weigh heavily on corporate financing and the economy as a whole. According to Ipek Oskardeskaya, senior analyst at Swissquote, Europeans hold roughly $10 trillion in U.S. assets, around $6 trillion in U.S. equities, and roughly $4 trillion in treasuries and other bonds. Bessent added he expected Europeans to hold on to their exposure and not offload it. But asked by reporters at the Davos World Economic Forum whether the U.S. was preparing for such a scenario, Bessent said that it defies any logic. Calling the U.S. Treasury market the best performing market in the world and the most liquid debt market, he said he expected Europeans to hold on to their exposure, not offload it.
I think that question is the myth of the false alternative. You're once again going to the farthest point, a maximalist position, that we are in the middle of President Trump's policies. And of course, Europe is an ally. The U.S.'s NATO membership is unquestioned. We are partners in trying to stop this tragic war between Russia and Ukraine. But that does not mean that we cannot have disagreements on the future of Greenland. Calm down the hysteria, take a deep breath. This is where we were last year. I'm sure you've asked asked me the same question if we were here on April 2nd, and you know what? It all worked out. The economies are fine. We have a very good trade agreement, and I think our relations have never been closer.
There's a completely false narrative there, he said. I think everyone needs to take a deep breath. Do not listen to the media who are hysterical.
European Union leaders are set to hold an emergency summit in Brussels on Thursday to discuss their response to the Greenland crisis. Patrick Munley, a money manager at the Tickmill Group, told AFP that there were concerns over the Trump administration's confrontational stance toward global counterparts, which could potentially dampen appetite for U.S. assets, with longer-term bonds bearing the brunt of the decline. Analysts said global investors were intently focused on Davos, where Trump is expected Wednesday, for fresh insights into the U.S.-Europe standoff. European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen has dubbed Trump's tariff plans a mistake.
When it comes to the security of the Arctic region, Europe is fully committed. And we share the objectives of the United States in this regard. For instance, our EU member, Finland, one of the newest NATO members, is selling its first icebreakers to the United States. And this shows that we have the capability right here in the ice, so to speak. It shows that our northern NATO members have Arctic-ready forces right now. And above all, that Arctic security can only be achieved together. And this is why the proposed additional tariffs are a mistake, especially between long-standing allies. The European Union and the United States have agreed to a trade deal last July. And in politics, as in business, a deal is a deal. And when friends shake hands, it must mean something. Ladies and gentlemen, we consider the people of the United States not just our allies, but our friends. And plunging us into a downward spiral would only aid the very adversaries we are both so committed to keeping out of the strategic landscape. So our response will be unflinching, united, and proportional.